Richard, do you have it ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then we're going to call our meeting to order. We will skip the public comments as of now because people are having the ability to watch this. They can send us information or ask questions by using a card or a letter, whatever, however they want to do it. They can also call council members or city staff. So we'll go to item number 3, which is the coronavirus COVID-19 report. A, report on status of the city response to the coronavirus pandemic. I think Kent and Chief Bizzle are going to give us some information.
Okay, Mayor, members of the council, thank you for being here, and I'm going to give some brief opening comments on this, and then I'll call Chief Bizzle in, and he will give his report, and then I'll finish up the report. And we want to make sure the council has full opportunity to ask questions. So once Chief Bizzle finishes his report, if you have any questions for him, he does have another meeting at 4 o'clock, so you can ask any questions of him and before he leaves, and I come in and finish the report. So if that's okay. But thanks for being here today. We know this is a real difficult period of time for the community, and it sure is for city officials and city employees. And I want to thank the local citizens for who are watching today's program and listening to the radio broadcast. One of the challenges that we have in setting the meeting today is we want to make sure that we're following the requirements of the CDC regulations as well as the recent disaster declaration, but we also have to follow the Open Meetings Act. It's a state law, so it's been kind of a challenge putting this meeting together, but I want to thank Daniel and the mayor and everybody who's participated in setting up this meeting today. As you can see, we're practicing social distancing today. We're all at a lot more than 6 feet from each other. We've also all gone through temperature checks as we came into the meeting today, so at this point we all appear to be healthy. There's not more than 10 people in the meeting today, so we are following the disaster declaration that prohibits any public meeting occurring here in the city having more than 10 people. So we are in full compliance of all the disaster declarations and state law at this time. We want to also thank the radio station KNAF and FISD and the Fredericksburg Standard for helping us get the word out on today's meeting to our local citizens. Thank you guys for your help and helping make this meeting as transparent as possible. So what I want to do is start the report today, and then I want to introduce to you Chief Bizzle, and he will provide you an update on how the emergency agencies and the other local agencies have been responding to the crisis over the last couple of weeks. And part of the reason we want to start the meeting with his report is we want to reassure the community that we are ready for this pandemic. We've done a lot of work over the last couple of weeks to get ready. We've been very proactive, and I think you'll see that from his report, and hopefully it'll ease some of the concerns and make our community calmer in dealing with this incident. So as we have proceeded over the last couple of weeks in dealing with this crisis locally, some of our goals have been to assist other agencies in protecting the public from exposure to the virus. And again, the chief has headed those efforts, and he will tell you about that. We've also thought it was important to keep the public informed about what's going on here. People tend to get a lot more anxiety, a lot more fear if they don't know what's going on. So we've had a lot of public information efforts that we've initiated. We'll share those with you. And then the third goal is we want to make sure we do everything to protect our employees. And one of the main reasons for that is our employees provide critical services, essential services, and Clinton will get into that a little bit later. But we want to make sure that they're physically able to provide those services during this crisis. So that's been our goals that we've tried to focus on over the last couple of weeks. I know all of you and all of the city employees have gone through emergency planning training. We have a lot of training, a lot of exercises that happen here throughout the year, and those have been very beneficial to us in getting ready for the crisis. But this is, as you probably know, this is a pretty unique situation that we're dealing with right now. This is a disaster that really is silent, it's invisible, and it's really unpredictable what's going to happen during the next couple of weeks. So it's a lot more challenging than like a fire or some other incident that we usually train for. And so with that in mind, what we've been trying to do is take some real aggressive, proactive actions and decisions to kind of get ready for this thing. And we want to thank the City Council for your trust and your confidence in us to make those decisions and take those actions to protect our community. We've done a lot over the last couple of weeks, you'll see from our report today. And thank you for your trust and your confidence in us to make those decisions. And we ask that you continue to give us that trust and support as we move forward, because it appears the next week or two may be even tougher than the last couple of weeks. So those are the opening comments I have for you. And before I turn the presentation over to Chief Bizzle, I want to tell the community a little bit about Chief Bizzle so they'll know a little bit about his background. First off, when this crisis started 3 weeks ago on March the 2nd, it looked like it was going to impact the whole state. The first decision I made was to appoint Chief Bizzle as the point person and directed him to be in charge of all the coordination and planning locally. And one of the reasons I did that is he has a very extensive background in fire and EMS and emergency planning services. To just give you some indication, he's had over 30 years of experience in serving different communities, including 24 years as a fire chief in Round Rock. And he also had 4 years at A&M and coordinating some of their training. And he was appointed fire chief here, of course, 4 years ago. So I think he brought to the table some outstanding leadership and experience in leading our community's efforts. And I think he's done a wonderful job. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Chief Bizzle.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I want to start by letting everyone know this is an evolving situation. It is truly a disaster, as the governor has declared a state disaster declaration, as well as the county and the city as well. So as we move through this, just to give you a little bit of the background of what I've been doing is I monitor this daily. So I kind of keep track of all the statistics, all the cases. Currently there are 334 cases, and please understand this changes hourly, daily, and things of that nature. There are currently 334 cases in Texas with 5 deaths. As the testing continues in the current testing situation, there's been about 8,800 tests in Texas, and those are divided between what they call public testing sites and then also private testing sites. So those tests continue. I am currently getting information that there should be close to 15,000 test kits available by the end of this week. So that's good news, where we can continue that testing process. I really feel you will see more cases as we move forward. The issue with the virus itself is that an individual can currently have that virus, and then that virus doesn't show any symptoms for 3 to 7 days. In the meantime, they could be moving around the community, they could be visiting with their family members and things of that nature, and not know they even have the virus, but yet spreading the virus. So that's one of the critical pieces of this virus and the problems that are associated with trying to alleviate it. So as we move forward, all of these recommendations that have come forth from the governor's office, from CDC, we have maintained from the very beginning we want to follow the CDC guideline. And I think we're doing that for the most part. This is a fast-moving epidemic that changes daily, and so different information is received daily, and we try to push that out to everyone. So as we move forward, no gatherings, as the governor and the local proclamation have stated, no gatherings over 10 people. Keeping a 6-foot distance between you and everyone else. Try to make sure that you when you travel, I'll speak a little bit in a minute on what we've adopted locally on our travel for all of our city employees and all of our people, and things of that nature. All of those things are cool. It takes everybody to stop this virus, everybody. So everyone, if you look at the news now, they are reporting news from their homes, right? So that tells you right there that we as a community have to come together to continue doing what we're doing. I think we're doing a great job. I think sometimes that we've got to remind people that, hey, you may not want to do that. You may want to do this. So as we move forward, it continues to be a critical piece of our commitment to each other and to the community to make sure we're reminding people of what what we should and shouldn't do. All of that information is on the website. A lot of you listen to my conference calls in the morning, so I don't want to repeat a whole lot of information, but I want to tell you a little bit locally what we have done with the city. We have developed a policy for the city that we would check everyone's temperature before they come to work, okay? We have a sign-in sheet, we take their temperatures, we record those temperatures, and then at the end of the day, when they leave, we do the same thing. On the fire and EMS side, we have the PPE that we use. When the call comes in, what we do is the dispatch will screen that call. If there's any indication, which they ask certain questions, have you had recent travel? Have you been around anyone who's had that? What are your symptoms? Do you have shortness of breath, a fever, any aches and pains? We will ask those questions when we get the call. We will then respond, and we will actually if any of those answers are yes, then we will actually put on our PPE, which is personal protective equipment, gas mount, a N95 mask, gown, eyewear, gloves, which we always use anyway, and things of that nature. Once we get to the scene, we will evaluate that patient. If that patient is not a serious patient, we will ask them to self-quarantine, and if their symptoms get worse, then they need to call their physician. So there are going to be times when we will be actually not transporting people and making sure that they're self-quarantined as we make our decisions moving forward. If they're serious, we have to work it just like we would anything. If it's a serious situation, we're going to work those individuals just like we would any other emergency. We have to alert MedCom to let them know that we may potentially have a patient with this virus. They then will notify the health department and things of that nature, and all of the precautions will come into place at that point. So we are monitoring we've really stopped any vacation for our employees on the fire and EMS side. If they want to get off, they have to come through my office, and there has to be a good reason to do that. What we want to try to do is keep our crews together, because the more people we bring here to work in someone's place, the more exposure that our people have. So we want to make sure that we limit the number of people that are coming in and working, and making sure that we keep our crews consistent. And I know Clinton is doing some of those things in his department to try to split the crews. If something happens to one, the difficult part about this is one of them gets ill, we lose all of them, okay? Because they all have to be self-quarantined if that virus is detected in any of our employees with our crews. We are sending one person in to evaluate patients now, to see what's going on. That doesn't expose both individuals that are going in, and sometimes we have larger crews than that, so we're sending one person in to do evaluation. If they need additional assistance, then they call for the others to put on the PPE. The difficult part about this, when you look at it overall, is our hospitals and the room they have to put people. That's the reason why the governor yesterday ordered all elective surgeries stopped. That gives the PPE that they use to other people, other workers in hospitals, the opportunity to have some additional PPE. There's a tremendous shortage of PPE everywhere. We've had PPE on order for 3 months and we still don't have it in. So moving forward, that one issue starts to affect other things along the line, and our job is to coordinate together. We are putting things in place with our PPE to make sure we can have enough moving forward. We're not getting any in. We're not going to get any in for a long time, what they're telling us, and so there are other needs out there. When you look at other states who have this virus more widespread than Texas does, you can see what's happening in those states, and a lot of that stuff is going to those states who actually really need it at this point, and rightfully so. So moving forward, our policies on travel, or if any of our employees travels outside of the county, they have to report to their supervisor. That supervisor then will determine, hey, he will ask a series of questions. Have you been in contact with anyone that had fever? Anyway, there's a series of questions that we will ask them, and then they will allow them to come on back to work. If they went out to the country and spent, the whole weekend on a ranch somewhere, sure, we're going to let them come back to work. But if they were in an area that may have been affected by this virus, or there's a lot of people in the community who have the virus, then we will make a decision as to whether or not to bring them back on duty. If they travel out of state, they're on an automatic 14-day suspension. Not suspension, but 14-day self-quarantine. We don't want to take a chance. We can't take a chance. And so it is critical moving forward that we all work together as a group and as a team to keep this virus from continuing to spread. We never know. I don't want my family getting it. I know no one wants their family getting it. But it's out there, and it's very serious. So as we move forward, I will continue to update everyone every morning on our conference calls, getting the latest stats that I have, and working through the issues that we're having moving forward. So I encourage everyone to continue to do what we're doing. I think our community is doing a really good job. There's always things I think that we can do better, and we can continue to battle this thing and hope for the best as we move forward and with anything. So that really concludes my presentation.
Any of the council members have a question?
Thanks. Reported cases in our community or in the surrounding communities?
In our community, we had a report of one case. They do not live in our county. The way I understand the cases, they did work in our county. If they live they count the case for whatever county of their residence. So we won't have, although they may have worked in our community, they don't count that towards our community or our county. So no, we do not have any reported cases in our county.
No other questions? Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the Mayor and Council, before we go to the next item, I just wanted to share with you just a little more information on some of the things that the city's doing right now, some of the initiatives we've taken. And first off, I want to recognize the other employees that are kind of involved in this effort. But before I do that, I wanted to thank the Mayor and City Council for your role in this response. And you've been, Mayor and Council, you've been real good at giving us feedback on what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong and how we can improve. And we want to encourage you to keep giving us that feedback, what you're hearing in the community, kind of, pass that along to us, good and bad, so that we can, as we proceed, we can improve what we're doing. And the other thing that the mayor and council, you've been real good, is responding to citizen questions. And so what we're going to try to do, and what we started the last couple of days, is we're feeding you all sorts of information, anything that crosses my desk that we think you need to know about, whether it's the governor's new policies or the declaration, anything like that. We want to immediately send that to you so that you can review those documents and be in a position to answer questions from the public, because the more questions you can answer, the better, the less phone calls we'll receive here at City Hall. So if you do get a question out there that you can't respond to, you can call one of us and we'll give you the information, or you can just direct that caller to contact directly one of us, and we want to make sure we're as accessible and responsive as possible. The other members of our staff that have been playing a key leadership role in our response and we don't call this a task force, but it's kind of an informal task force. Of course, Clinton Bailey, our assistant city manager, he's played a very important role throughout this operation and creating policies and procedures, working on these essential services involving his department, and he's just been a real asset as we've worked through this issue. And then, of course, John Culpepper, who was about to retire and move on, but we persuaded John to come back in the fold, and he's done a great job working with the mayor and county judge on developing the disaster declaration, and John's been a critical part of the team. Lee Foggy, you've heard and seen a lot of her in the last couple of weeks. She's our public information officer, and I'll tell you a little more about what she's been doing here in a minute. Chief Wetz, of course, providing all the police and services. Laura Hollenbeck, our finance director, one of her critical roles is to make sure we're tracking all the costs, because since it has been declared a disaster here, we get reimbursed by the federal government for 75% of our costs. So very important that we track that, and Laura's been doing that tracking. Tammy, of course, coordinating with our city employees. Shelley Goodwin, our city secretary, recording different meetings and sending those out. She's also been staffing the front desk so that we can respond to questions from the public. And last but not least, Russell Emmel has been a critical part of this team, because we've had a lot of IT needs, such as this meeting, our Zoom meetings, and setting up different computers and so forth. So Russell's been a critical part of this. So I don't need to tell the city council this, but because I know you know that we have a great team at the city, and they're working very hard to serve our community in this critical time. So I want to recognize all those individuals. And last, I want to just share with you 4 initiatives that we're taking over the last couple of weeks, so you get kind of a sense of what we've been doing to kind of respond to this. And again, I think the public would appreciate this, and I think the council will. And the first initiative, I know that the community is suffering economically. We got people losing their jobs. We got a lot of economic negative impact to individuals and businesses in our community. And we want to do our part to try to offset that impact. So just as an example of what I'm talking about, some of the initiatives we've done is, you've probably seen, you've heard that a lot of businesses are getting creative in providing drive-through food services and takeout and delivery services. Well, some of them have put banners in front of their businesses, and we're not going to regulate those. At this point, if they want to put a banner out there to advertise their delivery services and that kind of thing, hey, we support that, and we can live with that without getting a permit from the city during the next couple of weeks, as they've tried to expand their businesses and try to offset some of the financial hits. In the finance department, we're working with people on their utility bills. We have the ability, according to our utility regulations, to work out payment plans with individuals who are suffering. And so we're working with people, if they have problems paying their utility bills, we'll work with them on a payment plan. And we're not charging any late fees right now for individuals that are having trouble paying their utility bills, or will have trouble paying their utility bills. I know Brian and his staff are working with local builders to try to make sure the building activity continues. Right now, we're doing our permitting online, and we're doing our inspections. If the builders will take a picture of their work and send it in and certify that the work was done according to code, then we're allowing that. We don't require our guys to go out and have inspections. So we're trying to work with the building community to make sure that they can continue on with their building and development activity. So those are just a couple of things. And if you hear of anything out there that we need to be working on to help offset that financial impact, please let us know. Our employees are also volunteering for local agencies that are stepping forward, such as the Needs Council and Golden Hub, and we want to encourage all the community to do the same. There's all sorts of agencies that are here to help our community as we've dealt with the financial side of this issue. The second initiative that is very important is public information. We've got to, again, get the word out to the public what's going on. And one of the things we started initially was these daily briefings that the fire chief's heading. Every morning at 8 o'clock, we have a briefing. I know the council's participating in those briefings right now, and we're sending out written summary reports of those briefings to kind of keep everybody in the information loop. We also have a daily conference call with all the agencies here in the community that are involved, like the Needs Council, FISD, Hill Country Memorial, City, County. All the lead agencies have a conference call every day at 1 o'clock to coordinate our efforts and share information, and that's been real good communications. And Lee Foggy, again, has done a lot of communication. I won't go through the whole list of her work over the last couple of weeks. I'll just hand a report out at the end of this meeting that talks about some of the things she's done to get the information out in the community, including upgrades to our city website. And all the information is available on our city website on what not only the city's doing, but other local and state agencies. So public information has been a major initiative of the city over the last several weeks. And one of the groups that's very important to that, of course, is the media. And they've done a good job working with us to kind of get the word out to the community on what's going on with the coronavirus. A third initiative that we started is looking at the financial impact that this is going to have to the city and trying to minimize that financial impact, because we know, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit about the impact to our sales taxes and other revenues, and so what we've done to minimize that is we've banned all city travel going on right now to conferences and meetings and that kind of thing. We have frozen vacant positions that are non-essential within city departments. Anything that's not essential, we're not filling those positions. We're cutting back on major purchasing. We're putting a temporary hold on capital projects. We're not canceling these because we need council's input before we cancel any projects, but like a temporary hold on some things so that we can get a handle on that financial impact and then bring those recommendations back to the council for your consideration on whether you, for example, one of the things that Clint and I and his staff talked about last week is maybe not doing much street paving this summer. We could save several $100,000 if we don't do any street paving. Well, we want to bring that forward to the council at a future meeting and have you talk about that. Do we want to cancel some of those capital projects this year in order to offset the financial impact? So again, we're starting to make some internal cuts to address these financial issues, but as we move to the bigger issues like capital projects, we definitely want to get your impact and your decision on whether you want to hold off on some of these, or you want to cancel some of these projects maybe until next year. And then a final initiative that we started through the efforts of Clinton and Tammy and the chief is personal protection for our city employees. We want to make sure that, again, we have the travel restrictions that the chief talked about. We're taking employees' temperatures. We're doing social distancing throughout the city. We want to make sure our employees are safe and healthy because, again, they're going to play a critical role as we move forward to address this incident. So that is some of the initiatives we've taken over the last 3 weeks. Again, this started 3 weeks ago when Chief Bizzle was designated as the coordinator, and we're continuing to look at other initiatives. If the council has any input on these items or anything else we should be doing, please let us know, and we will implement other initiatives. So in a few minutes, we're going to be talking about city services and which ones we want to continue and which one we want to maybe delay for a while. But that's really all the report, Mayor, this evening on that particular item. Any questions on any of that? I know that was a lot of information in a short period of time, but as you can see, we've been pretty busy. Any questions or comments?
All right, we'll go to item 3B, discussion and approval of disaster declaration. Daniel?
Does the council have copies of the mayor's declaration? I think it might be what in the packet.
There is.
So, the mayor,
Dated the 20th, correct?
that was
One
the,
dated 19th, one dated the 20th.
so on the, I want to say on the 17th and the 18th, or the 18th and the 19th, I had a meeting with the county judge and the mayor and John Culpepper to discuss possibly making local declarations, the county and the city. The county and the city were interested in having declarations that were compatible and essentially regulated the same activity. On the 19th, the mayor issued the local, or declared the local state of disaster due to a public health emergency in the city of Fredericksburg. So she made the declaration. Additionally, that activates the city's emergency management plan and authorizes the furnishing of aid and assistance to people related to that emergency. The mayor has the authority to make a declaration for a period of 7 days unilaterally on her own. For that declaration to continue beyond 7 days, she needs the consent of the council. So at the conclusion of our discussion today on this issue, if the council is inclined to continue that, I recommend a motion from the council to consent to and to continue the mayor's declaration of a local state of disaster. If the council takes that action, then it will be extended essentially indefinitely until further action of the council or of the mayor. I want to point out that the only thing that the council is consenting to is the declaration itself. The mayor would, after a declaration is made, the mayor holds power, significant amount of power related to the city's response to the emergency. That includes issuing orders. So for example, there's a regulation on social gatherings or community gatherings in the declaration now. The mayor would have the ability to change that on her own without the council's consent moving forward, as well as issuing any other orders or regulations that she determines is necessary for the city to deal with the issue. I think that sort of generally covers it. If the council has any questions, I know the mayor may have a few comments she wants to add as well. John Culpepper may want to add something also, I'm not sure. So
Is John here?
I think he may be out in the hall. We can exchange one person for another.
Go ahead.
The language is different from the governor's executive order. Is the end result the same?
Unfortunately, when we were drafting, or when I was drafting the cities and the county judge was working on the county's declaration, we did not have the governor's order in hand. So there's some distinctions in the language. I think, for example, really the only thing that's similar between them is the 10 person regulation, if you want to call it that, the prohibition on gatherings. The governor only restricts what they call, I think, social gathering or something like that, which is
Distancing.
But the governor says people shall avoid eating or drinking at bars, restaurants, and
Right.
food courts, whereas some of the restaurants were using the less than 10 people rule, so they were actually seating people. And so I don't know if that's a difference between does governors override?
on that issue. The governor's order would control.
Okay.
So the city's declaration and the county's declaration didn't address the issue of restaurants or anything like that. It just addressed the issue of gatherings, social events primarily that are scheduled. So when we actually discussed that, because this was before the governor had issued his executive order, We had we spent a lot of time talking about the effect it would have on restaurants and things like that, and the intent was to avoid regulating those. But now that the governor has issued his executive order, his will supersede on that issue or control on that issue.
And social gatherings does mean in public. Does it also mean at a person's home?
I don't think that we can dictate what you do in your personal home, but the recommendation would be to avoid that kind of gathering.
Are they done?
What about curfews for students?
Sir, at this point, the governor has elected to make that a local decision. And as far as I know, San Antonio has a curfew and Dallas has a shelter in place, but I have not heard of any other on any type of large scale.
So the question I have is, do we currently have a curfew ordinance during the week that students are to be at home 10 o'clock, and I guess it's later on Fridays and Saturdays?
And there's several exceptions for work and things
Right.
like that, yes.
Okay. So it might be wise to review for the public what the existing curfew is with all the kids that are out of school now.
Well, Councilor, I'd have to go get the codes on it because I can't give it to you off the top of my
Well,
head.
Chief
but I can-
Wentz is right next door. Would you like him to come in, sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Daniel, on the governor's, how does he address the 10 people? Did he say 10 social or just 10 period? His declaration.
I think it's more than 10, so the sort of magic number is 10. If you've got 10 or less, you're okay under the governor's order, county's order, county's declaration, and the city's declaration.
But he doesn't use the word social,
Which one are you talking about?
the governor's.
Is the governor's one in the packet?
Yeah. Said shall avoid social gatherings in groups of more than 10 people.
Also in some areas refers to currently to churches, and that's the only one I can think of right now, but that churches should also be cautious of how many people they have and how they're moving forward on it. I just saw that one today. So.
Hi.
Question on curfew, Tom?
Existing law or the existing city ordinance on curfews is.
We don't have one enforceable right now. It was, I guess, sunsetted is the word.
It was sunset?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Is that it?
that answers my question. Thank you.
The curfews require review and action every so often by the governing body. I think that's what the chief is referring to. Now, like I said, the mayor does have significant powers under the declaration. I'm not advocating for imposing a curfew, but I think that would be within the authority of the mayor to do that if she thought that was appropriate, given the circumstances.
However, that does need to go to the council first at this point. Is that not correct?
The only thing that the council needs to do is to consent to your declaration of the local disaster. Once that happens,
Then
then it's in. You're the one with the authority to make those decisions. Now you could discuss them with the council at a public meeting and get their input, but they're not required to consent to that action or to take action on as a council as a whole to make that happen.
And if we vote to extend this, you said it's indefinite. There's not a time frame.
Right, it would be until you either withdraw your consent or take some subsequent action to terminate it, or the mayor decided to take action to terminate it.
Okay. The county's is on an indefinite period also, sir.
Okay.
So that the judge can cancel it when it's no longer necessary.
questions?
I definitely think we need to extend, because the governor's goes to April 3rd anyway, so.
I agree.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Extend to April 3rd?
Well,
Or
Extend.
extend indefinitely?
definitely.
Is that correct, John? Is extend indefinitely? So that's the term you'd want to use if you're going to make a motion.
Yes.
And he just did, and I'll second it.
Okay. So any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, John. Next item C, discussion and approval of temporary closures of certain city services. Clayton, are you here for that?
Yes, ma'am, and Mayor Council, we had talked this morning about combining C and F,
Yes.
and it may be better to talk about the maintaining critical services before we get into discussing the closure of some of these services to the public. I wanted to also let you know that I have Andrea Schmidt, our Parks and Rec Director, available to come in, and then also Chris Meany from the golf course when we get to that item. But if I could start with F, talking about maintaining critical city services. The services that were critical city services that we're talking about there are water, wastewater, electric, and sanitation primarily. Those are the services that we provide that ensure that we're maintaining the health, welfare, and safety of the public. Those are services that are essential to life, essential for our hospital, essential for our grocery stores and every citizen in town. So we want to do everything we can to maintain those. Starting last week, Monday, we met with our public works superintendents, and we came up with a plan in our water department and electric department to divide the crews in half. Our electric department, we have 7 members. As you heard Lynn mention earlier, the same holds true for our electric department. If one of those guys gets sick, they're likely all going to get sick. Those are very specialized type positions, very safety sensitive positions when you're talking about working around electricity and so forth. So we've divided those crews in half. They're not around each other at all during the week. And right now we have them working alternating days. So we've done something very similar with our water department. Those crews are not working together. They're working those crews are staggering days again, just to maintain those critical services. There's no one else in the city of Fredericksburg, or likely not anywhere that we could import in right now that can perform those functions. So, we're taking a very conservative approach to making sure that we're able to maintain those services throughout this period. Sanitation is another one. That operation is a little bit different, but it is critical that we maintain that refuse collection component, keep the operation at the landfill going, burying that trash. That's another potential health issue in itself if we don't do that. So what we're doing at the landfill is we're taking the sanitation employees and we're dividing those folks into, again, 2 different groups so that they're not congregating together when they get there in the morning for lunch and so forth, just trying to get them to maintain their distance. And an additional effort, just in case we do lose some folks in those critical departments, we have the street department and Parks and Rec doing the same thing now. If we lose a couple of folks in the water department, we have guys that know how to operate backhoes and other equipment that could perform some of those operations. They could perform some tasks for the electric department as well. So we're really doing what we can to maintain the overall health of both public works and parks so that we can continue to provide those critical services throughout this time. Are there any questions about providing the critical services before I get into closure of some city facilities? So as Kent mentions in his background, the the services that we would like to visit with the council about potentially closing are the recycling center, which is part of the sanitation department operation, the golf course, and some of our parks facilities, including playgrounds, the Touch House, Pioneer Pavilion, Marketplace Restroom and Kitchen, and Fort Martin Scott. So if we could start with the recycling center. Garrett Bond provided me with a little bit of information recently regarding the number of folks that are coming through the recycling center, and that number has decreased over the week from about 145 vehicles per day to about 110 vehicles today. What we're currently doing is not allowing an individual to get out of their vehicle, but our guys are removing that material from vehicles so that they don't come into contact with those individuals using that service. But at the same time, that still poses a risk because our guys are handling materials that have been handled, water bottles or cans, and other items that individuals that are infected could have potentially come into contact with. So in an effort to reduce that contact with that material, that contact with those individuals, that direct contact, we're proposing temporarily closing the recycling center.
Question.
Yes, sir.
With recycling, and if people don't have the ability to recycle, are we given any consideration to putting a moratorium on giving any kind of tickets by the sanitation department for overstuffed garbage cans?
That's a good point, and that's certainly something that we can look into. We understand there's some folks that recycle have smaller cans, and those may be overflowing at some point if they're putting it all out.
Secondly, then, would the cardboard compactor that's in the back still be available to the public?
Yes, it would be. The cardboard compactor would be available to the public at this point, unless that's something you wanted to consider also closing as part of the recycling center.
Question, the employees, what happens to them?
We have talked to our landfill superintendent, and there's plenty of work to do at the landfill for those two individuals. We can barely keep up as it is, so they would fill in that gap and just work out of the landfill. Yes, sir.
If we were going to keep the compactor open at the recycling center, I would suggest that at least we have some kind of instruction manual so that when people do go up there, they're given a step-by-step on how to use it.
Yes, sir.
And I assume the brush drop-off behind the IT department will still be available.
That would still be available, yes, sir. Both we plan on both providing that service, curbside brush pickup, and then also leaf pickup that we've had scheduled coming up. We're evaluating that right now. We're actually seeing quite a few piles of leaves out there, and that's something we can handle as well. Okay, good.
When do you want to start this?
As far as the
Recycling?
potential closure,
Yeah.
we're looking for direction from the council. And again, we're trying to prevent that potential contact and one of our employees getting sick and spreading that to others. So we're wanting to do something fairly quickly if we do anything wrong.
How about tomorrow?
And we could get notice of that out through the radio station, and we could get that out through daily updates. Is the Standard Radio Post encouraging people to sign up for daily updates? And is the city encouraging people to sign up for our meeting updates? And do we send out a daily update? Yeah,
I know
that citizens could get on, either on their phone or their email.
We're sending information out constantly via Facebook, our webpage, and other social media outlets. We're trying to get that information out, good information out to people as quickly and as often as possible right now.
What day do they normally close to, is it Thursday?
Thursday, yes, sir.
I would suggest that'd be the day. Because that gives people, a lot of people don't have internet. A lot of people don't listen to the radio, I do, but people do read the newspaper and word of mouth. I would suggest Thursday, since that's the normal closing day anyway.
So Wednesday would be the last day would be open, Charlie? Is that-
It's gonna take time for people to understand it's closed.
And I think that's a good thought, Charlie. What we've seen is about the same 110 people are going to the recycling week after week. So, we're gonna hit probably 75% of the people that are residents that use that service just in a couple of days.
And we can post it at the recycling between now and then.
Right. Just, go ahead.
If we're closing the recycling center, can we keep the landfill open without people having to pay for it?
Without having to pay for depositing material in the landfill. That is a topic for discussion with the council.
It's just better than overflowing garbage cans or,
That's not a bad idea, Mayor, because we're gonna have the landfill open anyway. You're suggesting they just bring their cardboard down there?
or whatever that they want to put into the landfill.
I think recycling people are pretty conscious. Could it be possible to put bins out there? You could throw the cans in, throw the cardboard in.
Well, we've got a compactor, but all we're collecting is 10 in aluminum. And then it's just a question of, that would be great if people just put 10 in aluminum in there, but if they throw trash or they throw plastic bags full of aluminum cans or plastic bags full of tin cans.
Right, again, you have the potential for cross-contamination. We don't have a real good place that's not right out in the open to do that. Would be efficient for people to drive through, out of the weather and so forth. Very good idea and concept. Logistically, it may be pretty difficult to actually provide something like that works.
Well, if you're not laying anybody off, you could leave someone there to watch them and say the people who came in would have to dump it themselves. I mean, it's from person to person, right? Not from can to person to person.
Well, it's our understanding that the virus can live for up to 3 or 4 days on a tabletop like this. 24 hours on cardboard, maybe longer than that on stainless steel and some other metal surfaces. So it can be contaminated for a number of days, and that's something that we want to be very, very careful with.
I'd be fine with closing it.
Yeah, I would too.
Wednesday's the last day.
We can provide signage, we can provide information via Facebook, social media, the newspaper. This is live broadcast. Plus visiting with those customers, I think we can get the word out and address that with very few issues. And hopefully this will be relatively temporary.
I hope all this will be.
But y'all do not feel in favor of allowing people to take their garbage out to the landfill. If they have a small container and they recycle other things, then what are they supposed to do? Get a larger container? Or take it to the landfill and pay to take it in?
Well, the only thing that would appear to be the only thing that's really bulky is going to be cardboard. Because people can throw in their cans, they can throw in their tin, or they could put them in a trash can and keep them in the barn.
Could we temporarily issue them a larger can at the same price as a small can?
That's another good option. Yes, sir.
Gives them that opportunity, same rate, just larger capacity. I think would help alleviate. I'd rather see that than them driving out to the landfill and dumping it. I think, if they request it, hey, let's bring them a bigger can.
Do we have enough large cans to do that?
I can verify that. I don't know that answer off the top of my head. I don't think there are too many people that have the smallest can in town.
The only challenge there, Charlie, would be if they put it in their smaller can, then it would end up at our landfill. And the whole intent of recycling is to keep that out of our waste stream. So it'd almost be better to give them just a separate container for putting the cardboard in, and they could either keep it in their garage or whatever. At the end of this period, we could pick it up, or I guess we could pick it up once a week or so. But to give them a separate container at no charge, so that they can be guaranteed it's going to be recycled, is what I'm saying.
So once that container's filled, where does it go?
Right.
I mean, these recycling people they'll fill that up pretty quick.
But this could be weeks, unfortunately, and that could fill up fairly quickly. So, the best option may be to upgrade the size of the can.
Yeah.
If people want to do that, they feel like they're going to generate that much. And they can probably do some things on their own for the other recyclables, the cans and things like that. Don't take up a lot of space. They may be able to hang on to those until...
Score 'em.
Yes, sir. Until such time we can get back to business at the recycling center.
Do we need to do a motion to approve that?
That'd probably be good, just for the record.
Okay. So nobody feels that people take it to the recycling center and they are not having to pay for that. And then if they want to take it to the landfill to get rid of it, they're going to have to pay for it. Doesn't make sense to me.
No, I like the idea of not paying. If you want to take it to the landfill, we waive fees until such time we reopen the recycling center.
Is that for everything though? Everything that goes to the landfill? Every Gillespie County?
Most everything is going to go in the trash anyway. It's already going in the trash.
Well, I understand that.
I'll pick on me. I got 2 big old trash bags. They don't have anything recyclable in it. I'm gonna run it out there and throw it in the landfill. So you're not gonna charge me?
Nope.
So 2 things. I just got a text from our landfill superintendent. He said that we just ordered cans and we have 196 gallon cans, new ones on hand right now, so that we could exchange a smaller can for a larger can. And 2, it'd be my recommendation if we do the free deposit in the landfill, that it just be for household garbage. In other words, construction debris and things like that be prohibited, because we don't want people to abuse that free service. So household trash, what you would typically see in a trash bag and in our cans would be allowed.
Then would you be okay if they show the city driver's license too? So make sure we're not getting stuff from all over the county?
We can start doing that as well, especially for the free service, because we don't know what situation other landfills are having right now, and we don't want that. We wouldn't want a diversion from another location through our.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to control too, because virtually everybody around, the people that live outside the city limits do have a Fredericksburg.
And they take their things to the recycling center and to the landfill anyway.
They'll have a Fredericksburg address, but it'll be outside the city limits.
And I don't think anybody, we're not going to be checking, let's see, this address is outside the city limits. I think we could do this as a temporary measure. And I guess if people at the landfill think that it's being abused, we come back to the council.
So then the choices would be to ask for a larger container, and we waive the fee out of the landfill. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
And we can always rescind that at some point if it doesn't go well and you get complaints out of the landfill because of people bringing
Abusing
in
it.
appliances or abusing whatever.
Well, they can bring appliances and drop them off and it's
Yeah,
metal
that's true,
for
if
free.
it's metal.
Right, and again, we would also like to limit that contact even going across the scale with attendance in the scale now. So, I think both of those options, personally, the larger can would probably be the best idea. I think people are probably going to want to be sticking closer to home too. So that may resolve the majority of the issue right there.
Yeah, I'll share with you, I mean, it is what it is out there. It's not a pleasant experience once you get to the dump site. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. So,
So would we exchange the cans for as long as the recycling center is closed? And then, would they keep the small can at the house and just get a bigger one, or would we actually exchange the cans?
What we're talking about doing is trying to exchange the cans.
Okay.
Right.
Seems like you've got 110 alleged regulars and 100 cans. Looks like you can just bring them all an extra can and go on down the road. And I'm one of them, so I don't need a can. I'll be fine.
Do you have a large can? Okay.
yeah, just exchange them all.
Maybe that just.
I would-
Exchange if they call.
If they call, I wouldn't do it without somebody calling, because that takes manpower.
And stop any fines for overstuff.
Okay. Who has the words to make the motion?
Are we stopping fines, are we
For overstuffed cans,
for overstuffed cans till such time that,
the emergency is over. Or we reopen the recycling center.
well, are overstuffed cans due to not being able to recycle?
I think partially when people start putting cardboard in their cans, that it takes up a lot of space.
I would like to personally ask the public to try to do as best job they can to get
Yes.
it all in the can, because again, reducing that contact with that material is going to be very important for maintaining that service. If we have to get out, pick it up, on every block, it's going to be difficult to
Plus
keep those folks safe.
Plus you also have the exposure issue.
Right.
I think we still need to keep our policy that it has to be in the can, can't be on the street. If the lid won't close, okay, but it's gotta be in the can. Break down the boxes, don't put a whole box in there but
Also, just got word from our superintendent that Fredericksburg Recycling is accepting cardboard, so that's another outlet for the bulk material.
I move to approve that we close the recycling center at the end of business on Wednesday, the 25th of March. That if you have a smaller trash can, larger cans will be available to swap out while the recycling center is closed. What else? Oh, and that we waive the fines for overstuffed trash cans as long as the trash is in the can. What else? That it?
Second,
Any discussion? Oops.
waiving the fee at the dump.
Okay.
Yes, would you please add that?
Yeah, and then also waive the fee at the landfill if you would like to dump your trash there.
Recyclables.
Only to city residents, and they have to show a driver's license or some form of ID.
Now, we provide, recycling center is open to city and county residents.
Okay. Well, then we need to do it for county as well.
Yes.
So, no need to show ID. Well,
Yes.
that you live in the county of Gillespie.
household only.
Household trash only.
I'll second that one again.
Any discussion? No? Gary, did you want to say something? All in favor? Aye.
Wow.
All right.
Golf course.
Golf course? Yes.
And I do have Chris Mead available if we want to get Chris in the room for this discussion. He's in my office, Ken.
Yeah.
But before we get into this discussion, while we're waiting on Chris, this we had a really bad weather weekend, and a lot of folks out there playing golf. So as we talk about the next two items, as staff, we do feel like it is important to offer these outdoor opportunities for people, but again, try to keep that very safe. And there are going to be some tough decisions to make with respect to keeping the golf course open, and then also keeping some of our parks facilities open, which we'll end with. But I think what you're going to hear Chris Mead, our golf course general manager, say is that he feels that we can maintain safe operations out there and keep the golf course open. We've made a couple of changes to the operation out there, which I'll let him provide a little bit more detail on. But it seems to be working fairly well so far. Chris, if you want to have a seat, just right there, and I'll hand it over to you.
Sorry, I think I was experiencing a slight lag in your office. Kent had to come get me, so pardon the delay. I'm not sure what Clinton just went through, but our current operations, we began Saturday morning, 8 a.m. start time, trying to curtail last tee time until 4 o'clock. We closed the clubhouse to all access other than the hallway that leads to the restroom, so the golf shop is closed. The restaurant is obviously closed due to the governor's order that took effect Friday night. So we have canned beverages, prepackaged, meaning from the manufacturer, prepackaged snacks available in the golf shop. We work out of the window that faces the parking lot. We have taken one of our Purell dispensers to the outside of the building. We can open that window to about a chest height to where there's still no face-to-face contact. We allow the customer to pay credit card or debit card only. Do not accept cash or checks at this time. We are strongly requesting that all golfers ride single. We have had some pushback from minors and husband-wife, boyfriend-girlfriend type scenario. We request it. Obviously, you can't make a 12-year-old walk because the granddad, rides, but we strongly advise that everyone rides single in a golf cart. We have removed bag stands from the driving range. Ball washers are empty to where there's no use to try to use a ball washer. Up until today, we have flag sticks in the greens with raised cups, but we're considering just removing the flag sticks and putting everything in the center of the green tomorrow, should we remain open. Just tell the golfers that's where the flag is, no flag sticks. Most likely remove rakes, any point of contact that we can eliminate. Sand bottles on the golf carts. We have eliminated ice and towel service at the golf course, remind people to basically bring what you need to make it around the golf course. Ideally, it would be a walking only scenario. Our market doesn't really allow that to happen. We've got probably 40% of our rounds of golf are played with a golf cart, so it's very difficult to tell some of our loyal customers that you walk or you can't play. So that's kind of where we are on the golf cart situation. We are sterilizing on the hour, doorknobs to the outside lets people into the restroom. All the touch points on the golf carts are hit with bleach water after our daily washing before they're restaged. And then as they sit there throughout the course of the day, we'll go by and mist steering wheels and the windshield frame, the part that people would grab as they go to sit in a golf cart. Getting a lot of questions, obviously. We have blocked T-sheets beginning tomorrow until we have a plan. It was easier just to tell people to call us tomorrow as opposed to have to call a bunch of people and say you can't come. So we'll be busy this afternoon regardless of the outcome of this decision, either planning to be open or making sure everyone knows, that we will not be available for a while. Driving range, again, because we hit automated, as you know, a little over 2 years ago. Huge success, but more touch points. So it's another area that we have to constantly sanitize the keypads. Most people have a key, which is then their possession, so they're the only one that touches it. But should they buy range balls in the golf shop, they get a token, which requires them to use the keypad, like the telephone. Range basket handles, like I say, we bleach water almost everything. We're pretty low on other sanitation supplies, so it's been bleach and water to this point. But comfortable. The staff had, our staff was much more at ease once we closed the golf shop. It's a great place to work, but everybody needs to be really careful right now. So I speak for my staff only because I've spoken with them all directly. Everyone's obviously very concerned, but under the way we're operating now, I think everyone is at ease as you can be at ease outside of your house, if that makes sense. So I don't know if you're a suggestion from me or just kind of input to what we're doing, but I do know that we have a lot of loyal golfers. We have a lot of people that want to see it remain open. We have a lot of people that, we're going to probably have some input regardless as to the direction we go. But we've been very good at relaying information, both good and bad, in our tenure here, and we'll continue to do so. So it's the biggest issue. I kind of spoke with a couple golfers today on my way out here, and it's very unfortunate, and not to point fingers, but the biggest issue I see is the lack of care by the people that we're really trying to protect. So we're going out of our way, I feel, to sanitize and make things a safe environment for them, and they in turn don't make it a safe environment for themselves in some cases. The 6-foot rule, the don't want to ride together, it's difficult sometimes getting the information out and then having others follow it. So, 2 weeks without golf is a long time, but a summer without golf, or, God forbid, losing one of our golfers is much worse. So we're willing to go with whatever the direction of the council and make sure that we abide by set standards.
What has Touchstone done with other courses?
Well, a large portion of our portfolio is in California. We're operating 40 golf courses at this time. 18 of them are in California. So you know what's going on there. They're shut down. They have, typically that scenario, we would keep the general manager, superintendent, and an assistant superintendent, and everyone becomes stewards of the property, and pretty good on a 3100, so I'll go to work with Dale. And we would make sure that we don't lose the asset. We would maintain the clubhouse, but obviously it's spring, and the number one priority is making sure when you reopen, the golf course is ready to reopen. We have other properties, Austin, another municipality. Golf course is closed. They're allowing walking access only to their membership. No one in the clubhouse. They're kind of manning the parking lot gate, locking it at a specific time of day. No food and beverage really to speak of anywhere in our portfolio at the moment. our standard answer will be, we work for you. We'll give you suggestions, and obviously safety is the number one priority at this moment in time. It was not a nice weather weekend, in Fredericksburg this weekend, but we did have golfers. We had golfers today. Monday's become a loyal military day for us, and probably have a high percentage of Super Senior Golf Association members listening in. We're supposed to play golf tomorrow morning, so we'll see.
On your golf court, if you're requiring only one person, do they have to pay a golf court fee for every cart in a foursome?
Well, you always pay a per person rider fee. In times outside of this, there would be a surcharge to have your own golf cart. That fee is obviously not being charged. So the fee to the golfer is the same whether they ride with someone or alone.
So their fee, okay.
It doesn't affect them.
And you said if somebody wants to bring their golf cart, they can?
Oh, no, sir. We've never taken outside golf.
Okay, well, I wasn't sure I understood what you were
Pull
saying.
carts, maybe. I apologize. I don't know what I said, but no, we've never had outside golf carts, as long as I've been here.
Chris, are you limiting the size of groups playing together?
Well, through attrition, we have either canceled, postponed, or had events canceled on us. The only real group that we have to monitor is our Senior Golf Association.
Right, well, I'm talking about, are you letting groups of 4 play together or groups of 8 play together?
Well, 4 is maximum per tee time, and then, like I say, we're trying to keep them individual golf carts. Had a very constructive email from one of our members come out today suggesting they not even approach the tee box together. Golf it's relatively solitary. It's just the point of contact of getting started and getting finished is the biggest issue. So, and again, it falls back on 4 hours of doing the right thing. Just like playing by the rules, you need to play by the rules of safety as well.
Gary? Just think that it may be a good idea to continue with the golf course if that's the direction you want to go and you think the weather's going to be good. And I know that the governor, about 2 days ago, in part of his group that was having conversations and discussing with the public, that he made a comment about keeping parks open. So
It's in his order.
Yes, it is.
It does not prohibit people from visiting parks as one of those listed.
So I think it's just the idea of people, you don't want to be quarantined perpetually. So you need some days that you can get out and do a walk somewhere or go to a park. So are we?
I think with the precautions that Chris and Clinton have outlined, I see no reason to curtail operations at the golf course at this time.
I don't either. At some point, it might become a financial decision, but.
And at some point, it might, if people don't follow the rules, then again, it might be.
I think just like everything else with this, it's very fluid. The fact that we continue to try to stay open will obviously we'll change our hours, and it's kind of all been outlined for you. And it's going to be not like it was last spring, but it's going to be better than it could be this spring. So as long as we can keep everyone safe and keep staff safe and make sure that we're in control of the situation, I think it's obviously I think you'll have people very, very happy to be able to come out and have that time away from everything else that's going on. I guess my one question kind of goes without answering, but as you know, I think it looks like Harris County is getting ready to, unless they've done it while I was here, maybe make a move on golf. Obviously, should that happen, we just immediately cease and desist. I mean, correct? I mean, if it happens, something like that would happen here if it goes beyond.
Or
I think it would be a governor's order.
Correct. Yeah. follow up by Clinton with hours, and we'll get everything posted, social media and on the website.
And I would think that the staff at the golf course would also be able to reinforce the social distancing ideas about we want to have a good time, but
We have, I mean, we catch them and check in. We have obviously, we've limited some of our outside staff to really be there to service golf carts as they come back in. We set them up and put them away. We're not, it may be not as greeter friendly as we like to be, but we're just trying to keep everyone away from each other at the moment. So.
And Mayor, Council, just one thing regarding the cards that I'd like to get a little bit more input from you on is, are you wanting to keep cards available to everyone? Chris had suggested maybe making the cards available to anyone with a handicap license plate or, you know, a disability of some sort. Again, that's an attempt to reduce the contamination of those cards and employees to clean those and so forth.
well, what you got the seniors, the super seniors tomorrow.
Yes.
And I'm sure a lot of the super seniors are not classified, or would that be limited to people that have handicap license plates?
It was, like I say, it was something that we had kicked around. And I'm going to say off the top of my head, a third of that group would probably qualify. And then probably a third of that group walks, believe it or not. I think it's more what and that's where we address the hours is the last tee time. The most that we really want to rein in are the after work or the late afternoon golf carts, which this would address because obviously none of those people qualify for. I think everybody needs to kind of meet in the middle, and if we're going to stay operable, then we need to kind of limit our exposure to how long we're there, because it will eventually come to finances, and if we can cut 2 or 3 hours off each end of the day, we can operate a lot longer than we can stay there till 9:30 waiting on one golf cart to cut.
That might be.
Once weather clears, what you might even see an uptick in player at tee times?
Potentially, yes. I mean, I think
Because people are penned up, they want to get out.
we were trending in a very positive direction before. So, other than the ones that are truly adhering to self-quarantine or very stern on social distancing, I think that personally, I think the golf course is a safe place to be. I think the interaction of getting started and finishing is where you have to be extra careful with staff and with the customer and the winner.
I like it.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yours and
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
all right.
Should I send someone in? Right here. Do I have a wonderful day? Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Turn that up.
Hello.
Okay, to conclude our discussion on the item regarding closing certain city services, parks. We'll conclude with parks. I read out the different facilities that we're considering. With that, I'll turn it over to Andrea, so we can get into that with a little bit more detail.
Sure. As of right now, we've basically canceled all of our reservations at the Touch House, the Pioneer Pavilion, all of our open pavilions, Little League, adult softball, any organized sports at all of our facilities from now until May 15th. We've also shut down a few of the restrooms out of the park, out at Lady Bird, but all the rest of them are still open. So Market Square is still open. CBB, Cross Mountain, Basketball Pavilion, those are all still open. We've also closed Park Headquarters door. We still have staff in there, but we're doing all of our contact either through a Ring doorbell for people that show up at Park Headquarters, or they can do online reservations, or we can do it over the phone with them right now. We are getting quite a few RV cancellations, quite a few here in the last week and a half. But we still are getting new reservations. For example, we have somebody coming from California right now that's trying to get to Florida, and so she's gonna stop and stay here partway through for a night or two. So we still do have new reservations, and they are coming from out of state right now to the RV park. I have been following the National Recreation and Parks Association. They have a forum where everybody's talking about this in parks all over the country. As of right now, they have a lot of cities agree that the parks need to stay open in some format, just for people's mental health, so they can get out there. You know, parents have their kids home right now with them. They really probably need to get out sometime and just get in some open air and run around. So I do agree we do need to keep the parks open in some capacity. So 78% of the agencies have the parks open still. 73% have trails open. 53% have closed the playgrounds though, because of the difficulty in trying to sanitize those. 55 have closed their dog parks, and 76% have closed the public restrooms. That being the main spot that everybody's concerned about the transmission of the virus there. So that's what we're doing right now. Just want to open it up to council for any questions.
As far as playground goes, I can see there's no way you can go back in and sanitize that. It's impossible.
Right.
But I think for the health of our community, I think we should keep as many of these playgrounds open as we can. Because the kids need a place that don't have playgrounds to get to. Of course, we have the park, Lady Bird Johnson Park, the trail, we've been on that.
Yes.
It's probably an underused, maybe we need to advertise that more.
Sure.
For that trail walk out there. Martin Scott, is there a trail up and running?
There is, and it's open to the public right now.
So I think that's real critical, let the people know that these trails are available to them.
Sure.
Cross Mountain.
Cross Mountain, yeah. Absolutely.
I guess a couple of the questions are if do we want to close all the restrooms, or do we want to close some of the restrooms and maybe keep Market Square open? And do we want to continue to allow new RV reservations at this point? Are probably two of my biggest questions.
What about restrooms? Close the big ones on Market Square and keep the little ones on Adams Street open? Would those be easier?
Yes, they would.
Easier to clean, and the reduction that we've had so far in people walking. What about the restrooms at the VIC?
The VIC is closed right now, so and they've asked that we close those restrooms. But
and then that would be both
decision
down here and uptown.
Yes, so we have two sets of bathrooms on Market Square, and then the one set at the CVB. And right now we've hired a cleaning company that is coming in 3 times a week in addition to the park staff to the bathrooms at Market Square. So they could continue to do that, and we can keep up with those smaller restrooms a little easier. So we can close the other 2 sets.
I would close the big one at Mark Plaza.
Yeah.
Okay.
And close Facema, what else?
I'd close the RV you'd have to keep open.
Yeah,
Yes.
RV restaurant.
I'd close all of them except the small one at Mark Plaza.
Okay.
You're talking about the restrooms.
Restaurant. I'd also close the playgrounds. There's no way, I understand, I mean, we've got parks where kids can run around.
Right.
Right.
But trying to maintain the playgrounds and keep them sanitary, I don't think we can.
Right.
That'd be impossible.
To add to that, what we've been hearing since this first started is that young kids can carry this for some time without showing symptoms, sometimes for greater than a week. And the situation that you have when those kids are on the same device out there and it's not cleaned real well, they could be transmitting that to their parents that are transmitting it into the community. Again, it's just those contact points that we want to try to eliminate to really stop the spread of this in this community. So our recommendation would be to close the playgrounds as well.
All the playgrounds. So that would be the playgrounds at Elementary School Park, the playgrounds at Marktplatz, Franzen Park, and
Old City Park.
Yeah, Old Fair Park.
Old Fair Park.
And also Ladybird.
And Oakcrest, yes.
And Oakcrest.
There are 5
And when you say you're gonna close them, how do you go about doing that?
That's gonna be a matter of putting up signage, because we can't physically close
Right.
every playground, but we can put up some signage. There is some signage wording that's been posted on the NRPA website as well. So I've got that printed out, and we can get some signs made.
Can you do that?
Facilities.
Orange temporary fencing around it?
Well, we could put maybe some caution tape or something,
Yeah.
that'd be pretty easy to do.
Might be people do voluntary compliance, and I think most people understand the nature of the emergency that we're under. I would hope that we can trust them to do the right thing.
So we're talking now about Cross Mountain and Fort Martin Scott being open?
Fort Martin Scott, the trails would be open.
Trails,
The
yes,
facilities, the restrooms and the buildings.
And the trail at the nature.
You say the restrooms will be closed in Fort Worth?
The nature trail at,
They're always
Okay.
closed. If the
Okay.
buildings are
How about
closed.
nature trail at Lady Bird?
Would stay open.
Which other ones would stay open?
pollinator garden?
All the trails.
Yeah, all the trails, we wouldn't close any trails.
All trails, okay.
Kayaking on the,
That'd still be available.
yeah.
You know, unfortunately, people are just gonna have to get a little extra creative during this time, and when it comes to outdoor activities, such that they don't impact others. You heard Lynn say up front, it's everybody's responsibility to be responsible, and think about these things. And, you know, I think that just keeping the parks open in general, is huge in terms of giving people an outlet to get out and burn off energy and get some fresh air and, just get out of the house.
Right. Encourage people to take walks, walk in their neighborhood, walk on the sidewalks.
Are the picnic, when you say pavilions, like at Lady Bird with picnic tables?
They're still open. We just
Okay.
canceled reservations.
Okay,
It's
so if
pretty
I
much
want
all-
to have a picnic out there, I can still do that.
Yeah, we did, hope to be 10 or less people, but yeah, you can still have a picnic.
And what about some of the ball fields that are at Lady Bird Park?
So, we're not taking any official reservations,
Right.
but we do know that there are some small groups that have still been showing up and practicing. And we had a mom out there today with 3 kids, and they were just running around the field, running off energy. So, I think that would still be okay.
And the dog park would still be open then?
Yes, that one's, we really very rarely have more than 10 people at the dog park. And we would hope people would again self-limit to less than 10 or 10 or less.
I mean, I downloaded the Dallas shelter-in-place ordinance, and they still allow walking and biking and going to trails. The one in California, no walking. I mean, it's restricted to stay at home.
Stay in your home.
No.
What about the new pavilion, new basketball pavilion? Open?
I was thinking about that one too, if that could be left open, or what about the little skate park that's there next to it?
Those could definitely be left open. We would close those bathrooms if that was what the council wanted, but leave the facilities open and just tell people, if there's more than 10 or more people there, then, social distancing and just try to get that word out as much as possible. And there is a likelihood that there could be more than 10 people at those facilities.
I think I'd just monitor it, and if it continues, then we close them.
Just do the best we can.
People need to have an outlet.
When this weather gets nice, they're gonna get packed. Skateboard and the basketball pavilion, they're gonna be 20, 25, 30, 40 kids there, and young adults.
We might have to close them.
Might have to close them.
Well, and you'll be putting some signage out, so
Yes.
you'll, like at Oak Bear Park, there'll be certain signage that relates to the basketball courts, but something else that would relate to the playground equipment.
Yes, so we'd have to put something up at the playground saying it was closed, and then at the basketball that it was still open, but to limit to 10 or less people.
And how many courts are at the new? There are 2?
Two.
There are 2.
2 full courts or 4 half courts.
In a pickle court.
That's pretty good. And we would do the same thing like at the tennis courts, put signage out there saying we're still open, but to limit groups to 10 or less. I just hope we would keep an eye on it and hope people would follow those guidelines.
So that would be 2 two sets of doubles and two single players out there at the same time.
Sure.
Y'all have any other questions for Andrea? Do you have anything else you want to add?
The RV reservation, we want to continue to accept new RV reservations.
What are the other RV parks doing?
Some of them are not accepting them, that's why they're coming to us, but some still are. There's quite a few that are still accepting them. It's kind of a 50-50 right now, from what I can tell.
When you say that's locally, some are not accepting them, or is that the
Some
nation?
it's across the nation, but I think there's a couple locally that aren't as well. From what the people coming to us have said, nobody else is taking our reservation, so they're coming to us.
And these could be people from anywhere.
And just to give you some input, like today, we had 2 RVs arrive with 4 people. The next 3 days, we have no arrivals scheduled. Friday, we have 1 RV, Saturday 3, and Sunday 2. So it's not like we have a whole lot. This time of year, it's very, very slow, to be honest, but we still do have some arriving. And we're continuing to take them for the time being, unless we're directed otherwise.
Do you know what this, Enchanted Rock State Park is doing? Are they limiting access as well?
I think they've closed offices, like Inks Lake, I know I got an email from them, and they're still accepting camping reservations, but they've closed the park store, and they've changed kind of how their check-in procedures are.
LBJ.
And I think there's an earlier closing time.
But yes, I think I read something about that too.
Yeah, they reduced the reservations by 25% until April 30th.
And the RV park's only about 45% capacity right now. We were at 100% just 3 weeks ago.
Oh.
Or 90, almost 100%.
I guess we could go with this at this point, but if it, in the future, if it looks like we're having an influx of RVers from out of town, we might want to look at the situation again.
2 things, that and we may potentially need some of those spaces for city employees or others to stay in the community over the next several weeks or months. So having that opportunity for employees, I think they would, from what I'm hearing, rather do that than stay in a hotel.
So with the people that you have coming in, how many spots are available?
We have about 100 spots right now, and we're at less than 50%. So we've got about 50 spots available, plus or minus.
Okay.
Do some of these city employees that we're thinking of housing here would have our RVs, they can bring their RVs in and connect?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we wouldn't charge them connection fees?
Right. For instance, if we start having an issue with city employees that live outside the county in infected areas and they don't have another option, that would be a really good option for them.
Well, I think that we should give them that opportunity now. Tell them that if they want to move now, that we should make every effort to have them here.
We can certainly pass that along.
At least that's my opinion.
Are y'all okay?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Push those trails.
Do you have something else?
That's it. Kent's out in the hallway.
Sam and Richard, do y'all have, is the time kind of getting to you, or do you need to get back?
I've got someone else going to the school board, so.
I can call tomorrow and find out what happened, so I'm good.
All right. Okay, are we on item number 3D, report and discussion on financial impact to city?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this will be real brief because since we're just now starting to feel the financial impact of the coronavirus, there's a lot of unknowns on this. And in fact, there will be a lot of unknowns until May or June. But keep in mind, sales tax runs a couple of months behind as far as collection and reporting. But with the economic activity in our community down, we will be suffering some decreases in our revenues. Just made a list of some of our revenues that will be going down. Our sales tax will probably suffer. Well, it'll definitely suffer. Our mixed drink tax, our building permits could experience a decrease. Hot revenues will be going down. And we could see a decrease in utility revenues as people have more difficulties paying their utility bills. So we'll continue to look at all these revenue items and of course bring these back to the council for your discussion and consideration on how we're going to offset that financial impact. We do have reserve funds in all of our funds, and one of the purposes of reserve funds is to help you in emergency situations such as this. So we can certainly tap into reserve funds if we have to, as long as we have a program or plan on how we're going to repay those reserve funds in a certain period of time. So that is certainly an option available to the council as we consider options. We also will be experiencing some increases in cost as we go through this disaster. One thing is overtime costs. We're looking at some departments experiencing some overtime costs, purchase of supplies, and other items to address some of the needs out there, EMS supplies and so forth. Fortunately, some of these costs will be reimbursable by the federal government as a result of the disaster declaration. So again, we'll be tracking all those costs and trying to get reimbursed at 75% rate. So all these budget impacts we'll continue to assess and discuss with the council. Again, we won't make any major decisions as far as capital projects and those kind of things until we get your decisions on those. And so at this point, that's basically my report, unless you have any questions or comments. And if you don't have any tonight, you have some in the coming days, just email me or call me and we'll continue to work on this item.
Okay. Y'all have any questions? 3E, discussion on future city council and advisory board meetings.
Okay, Mayor, on advisory board meetings, Brian advises me that there will not be a need for a planning and zoning commission meeting. There were some applicants that had agreed to withdraw their application until the following month, so that we could get hopefully through April and not have a planning and zoning commission meeting. There is one application pending before the Board of Zoning Adjustment. Brian is trying to work with the applicant to see if he'll push that meeting back another month. If not, the Board of Zoning Adjustment would probably have to have a meeting, but they would probably do an online meeting or something like that, so they don't have to all get together. The Historic Review Board has a number of items coming up for next month. They probably, I think they would like to have a meeting to approve these items, and again, they could have an online meeting in order to minimize the exposure of members to that. But one of the things that I mentioned earlier is we don't want to have a negative impact on the builders out there, the construction industry, and some of the things going before HRB will require their approval before those builders can get building permits. So we want to try to accommodate those needs and more than likely have an HRB meeting next month. So that's kind of where we are on those advisory boards. In terms of city council, I guess we'll kind of open it up for discussion. You have in your packet a listing of pending agenda items, and I'll just kind of go through those and tell you which ones are critical. And you can see right now the listing is pretty light. That's on page 14 of your agenda packet. And the only thing that Brian had mentioned that requires council action at the April 6th meeting is the institution of annexation proceedings. That is, as you know, a pretty short decision process. All you're saying is let's start the annexation proceedings, which just starts the clock running. And he says that according to the statutory requirements, has to occur somewhere between April 6th and April 9th. So I would suggest if we have an April 6th meeting, we have that item and any other item that you have. It's critical, but that's the only item we can see right now that would be critical to act on April 6th.
And we could, if need be, have a special meeting.
Yes, sir.
Just for that.
You could have a special meeting just for that too.
If we're gonna have, if that's already scheduled, I don't see any reason not to
Do it then.
do it then. What about the Atmos?
The Atmos, I think we have another couple of weeks to deal with that. I'll double check on that. We may have to include that. I'm not real sure on that, Bobby. Traffic impact study, are y'all okay holding off on that? I mean, it's not a critical item to discuss at this point in time, but we could certainly add that if you want to.
Probably be good to have another update on, brief update on what's going on like we have today.
Okay. So I think what you're saying, you want to go ahead and have that April 6th meeting, which would be 2 weeks from today, and have a coronavirus update, do the annexation, initiation, and then anything else that's critical, try to keep it short.
Yeah, you can do the consent agenda.
We want to have the April 6th meeting like we're having today.
If we have to, with me.
Daniel has, I think, some options.
Thank you.
Well, right now we're having a traditional in-person meeting, and there's options for what they call a video conference meeting or a teleconference meeting. Normally those are fairly limited in situations when you can have them, and the technical requirements to host those types of meetings are pretty particular. The governor has taken action to make those types of meetings much easier to have during this disaster. So like you can see today, I mean, the difficulty we've got is if we have the in-person meeting and we're trying to limit the number of people in the room, one of the requirements of having an in-person meeting is it has to be publicly accessible. Today we've got room for two members of the public in the room, even with a skeleton crew of city staff, and so it presents a problem trying to balance, all these, trying to balance the public accessibility of a meeting, of an in-person meeting, while trying to, weigh that with potential risk of us sitting together in a room with a group of people. So one option would be to have what's called a video conference or a web-based meeting. It would be like a webinar type process where a few of the council members could be together in a room, but the quorum or the entire body would not be together in a room. You would be at different locations. The public would have an ability to watch it. There would be a phone number where they can call in and listen if they don't have internet access. And so that's sort of what's being proposed as the most viable alternative to in-person meetings. I know that some people want to meet in person. It's easier to kind of read each other and have a conversation when you're sitting face to face as opposed to on a computer. But like I said, it's presenting problems otherwise. Just sort of complying with the Open Meetings Act and things like that. So the city staff has been starting to use teleconferencing or video conferencing for a lot of our meetings, and I think we're kind of getting used to that over the past week, and it seems to be working pretty well. So I think it's doable. It would just be changed for everybody. And if HRB has to meet or P&Z, I mean, they've got so many members on their board that and it's not about complying with we've got local orders and local declarations that whether they apply or not, I don't know if that's necessarily the only issue to consider, because we're also talking about the virus doesn't know that it's a government meeting versus a social meeting. I mean, it's going to spread either way, and so that's what we're trying to eliminate is everybody staying together in a room. So I think you've got to consider that, as part of it in your decision. So I don't know if there's any appetite on the council's part to move toward these alternative formats versus traditional in-person meeting.
What's the backlash or the lack of moving forward using this same scenario as we've done today?
Well, I mean, I think it's doable. It's just it's difficult, and we've had to move people in and out of the room as we go through the issues, and we have very limited public access. We only have space for 2 people in the public essentially to sit in here, which I mean, fortunately this meeting is being broadcast so that people can at least see what's going on. I mean, it's being transparent, but I'm not sure that's really the intent. The intent is so that probably more people. I mean, as many people as you can get to be there, that you can. So this is kind of putting an artificial ceiling on that number of people that we can let in the room.
Two other thoughts for the mayor and council to consider is if we get a designation of shelter in place over the next couple of weeks, I don't think we're going to want to go anywhere. None of us are going to want to get in our cars and everything. So consider that. That's, the governor may declare that. And then if you decide to do video conferencing and you're not, I know Bobby's familiar with it, maybe some of the other council members. Those of you that aren't familiar with it, Lee or one of our staff members will sit down with you and kind of show you how that works and spend some time. So it's a real easy process if you haven't used it before, and we'll be glad to to lead you through that.
Well, we will need that if we get to that point. So I think you should prepare some kind of a memo for council on the process that would need to happen to video.
It's not hard, I can do it.
Hey, you don't know me.
We're not talking about a very long meeting.
Yeah.
An update and a 1 minute action item.
Can two council members be at the same?
Computer,
Yeah.
yeah, two, it's not a quorum, two.
I mean, you could have some, if one or two of you wanted to get together up here maybe and have Russell help you, work through the technical side of it, and we could do something like that to accommodate. The decision needs to be made with some headway, with some lead time prior to the meetings. It's got to be noticed in a particular way, a little bit different than the way we notice it. We've got to provide some additional information to the public in the way that the packet's published and some things like that. And also just sort of setting it up, from a technology standpoint. So I just want the council to know that option is out there as an alternative to a traditional in-person meeting.
I would say that my gut tells me we'll have an in-shelter order before then, so we might as well go ahead and agree to do it. A shelter-in-place order from the governor.
I have no clue how this is done. I've listened to some meetings that we've been in, but I do not have a computer that I can tie into. I have a computer, but not one that's going to be.
Does it have access to the internet?
It does, but in my house, it doesn't always work.
And Mayor, if I could, I had no idea how to do this until last week when we went through a training and I made my first call in. And you can do it right from your phone, even with video capability.
I can do it with my phone or
Yes, ma'am.
someplace up here that's set up for it. And I can do it. And Charlie can come up here with me.
We go hands. No, can't do that.
No, I can't do that, but perhaps Charlie and I need a location that we can.
Well, if
work out.
if there's a shelter order in place, you might not be able to come up here.
Yeah, you might have to do it.
That's
from
true.
home.
Okay, well, I guess you three guys will be in charge.
Hey!
Okay.
There goes the budget.
We can work it out some way.
I think we need to keep our options open, but I have a feeling that we're going to need that.
They're going to be limited.
Okay, so have we finished the discussion?
I think after April 6th, we'll just play it by ear, if that's okay, and see how things progress.
And item G was the discussion and possible action on the May 2nd, 2020 election, but I think that what I've heard from some of the council members is let's hold it off until.
Well, I think we need to talk about what our options are.
Put some outline of the different options. Governor Abbott has provided a provision to allow the May the 2nd election that could be moved to November the 3rd. And so with doing that for the May the 2nd, we've already ordered all our ballots and have more than half of the ballot by mail put together. And then if for some reason it's pulled, then we would have to notify all of those people who have applied for the application. The election could be moved with pushing the ballot by mail for those who qualify. So in other words, in April and May, if you were going to be out of the county, then we would have to notify you to see if you're still going to be out of the county if we hold it in November. If we're going to hold it in May, then everything goes as is. And I spoke to the Secretary of State's office, and they have told me the last day for us to cancel would be April the 19th, which is the day before early voting starts. So if moving to November the 3rd, there's a couple different options we can do. The mayor, Councilmember Musselman, and Keeney will hold over till November. If we contract with the county, then we're at the bottom of the ballot. Results will not be reported until all ballots are counted, and their campaigning and reporting will continue. Current ballots will have to be destroyed, because if we're on their ballot, we get new ballots. So everything we've already expended will have to start over. The letters again will have to be sent to the applicants because they'll have to get a new ballot, and those will have to be destroyed. Additional early voting days will be applied and possible weekends. And just to let you know that will fall during the Fredericksburg Food and Wine Fest. November will. The early voting will. So, and then the election workers and judges will all be hired by the county. So if we do a joint election, we could do a city joint election city would be using the 4 precincts, precinct 1, 2, 3, and 4 for election day. We could have a separate table where they would come and vote, kind of like we did for the water. And that way we can keep our ballots. We'll have to hire new people or additional people, which would be more expense. And then we'll have to have, of course, a separate ballot box. Your results will come in earlier because we'll have our own central count. And still the additional weekends would apply, voting. Additional days, because they have a longer time frame than we do in May elections. They have a longer early voting. So those are just the different options that are out. And Daniel has kind of read through what the Secretary of State has said as well, so.
It has no effect. If the council were to postpone the election, it has no effect. It doesn't reopen the candidate filing period or anything like that. It's essentially just sort of a, pause button where we pick it back up later in the year. Shelley is correct in that the current, anybody that's in office, if their term ends in May, they would remain in office as a holdover until a successor takes an oath of office. So, some of you may get some bonus time if you decided to carry it on to November. Right now, you've got an order in place to have it in May. You have to take affirmative action to move it to November or to postpone it to November. The way I read it, there's no action necessary to keep it as in May. You may want to take some action just on the record to clarify what your intent is one way or the other. But so it's not mandatory that it move to November. It's just an option that was presented to local entities.
One thing that I think is incorrect here is I believe that there is no more straight ticket voting in the state of Texas.
I didn't get that.
Okay. But we might want to clarify that because I think the last legislative session did away with straight ticket voting.
But that wouldn't affect us.
Well, it affected. The only way it would affect us is that a lot of people, when they vote straight ticket, they don't look at the ballot, which means they don't turn it over, and they would not be voting in the city election if they had the opportunity. But since I think straight ticket voting is moot now, so I think the issue before us is, I think we could delay making a decision on whether to have an election to the April 6th meeting or a special meeting that week. And if we do decide to postpone the election, I think that having a joint election is probably in the best interest of the citizens of our city.
I agree.
Can I make another statement?
Oh, and I had one other question, is that if we do make the decision to go with the joint election, since that is directly caused by the coronavirus, would we be eligible for a 75% reimbursement by the state for expenses directly related to the coronavirus?
I can ask. Can I make another statement?
You bet.
So this weekend, I think there was some confusion because the city had requested from the county to borrow the AutoMark machines. A lot of people got confused in thinking that this was meaning that we were trying to go paperless. And the city of Fredericksburg is a paper ballot city. We use AutoMark is to assist people with disabilities to give them the right to vote as well. So it's not a new piece of equipment, it's the same equipment that they've been using for years. So we are not, we are a paper ballot city.
We have a trail.
Right.
So Daniel, if say we chose to extend the election until November 3rd, if for some reason someone were to resign, either because they wanted to or had to during that period between May and November, would we just follow standard procedures and either appoint or
the charter has provisions for filling vacancies. Now, where it gets a little weird is that normally you fill them until the next normal election or the next term, and this is going to, this isn't a normal election date, so we'd have to work through that issue. But I think that there's a vehicle there to address that if that ever comes up.
Okay. It'd be interesting if that happened. Do we fill that position with someone that's on the ballot, or do we fill that position with somebody that?
With the mayor pro tem.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not just thinking mayor or whatever, but.
Yeah, but it's got to go up the ladder somewhere. So.
I've been to those types of situations before, and that's usually one of the biggest considerations is do we want to appoint somebody that's running, because that sometimes that kind of gives them an advantage in some people's eyes, or do you want to appoint somebody that's not, that's only going to fill a short term until somebody is elected. I mean, that's a discretionary decision that the council would have to make, if and when that came up.
Do you need to make an appointment? Can you just run with 4?
I'd have to look at the charter and see if it's mandatory or.
With the mayor pro tem stepping in as.
Well, it depends on if you're talking about like a vacancy, or if somebody resigns versus somebody that just is absent or unable to serve. If somebody got sick or something, in circumstances we're in, that's not, totally out of the realm of possibility that somebody could become sick and they couldn't serve. So it depends on how the vacancy is created, whether it's temporary or permanent, as far as what the council would have to do.
Okay. Thank you.
So Mayor, does the council want to have this on your April 6th agenda, or do you want to have a special meeting that, sometime between April 6th and April 17th of this month?
I think we could have it on the April 6th agenda because by that time we'll have more information as to what the situation is on the statewide level.
Okay.
And if we need to have a meeting, if we decide at that time to delay, we could call a special meeting.
I agree.
So I'm going to move forward with completing the ballot by mails because we have a deadline.
And then if the election is postponed, you have a procedure for canceling those ballot by mails.
I do, and then I have a procedure for sending a letter to Landfill. In your packet that we gave you, the letter from the Secretary of State provided all of that.
And I don't know if this could happen, but there could be Daniel, would the Secretary of State have the ability to modify existing ballot by mail regulations to make it more acceptable to more people? Or is that something that would have to be a change in election law by the state legislature?
I think if that stuff, if those were set out in the election code, I think it would require a governor's action to modify or waive those or somehow accommodate what you're proposing. And a lot of things the governor has been doing are, these orders don't have a whole lot of text to them and a whole lot of guidance as far as how we're supposed to interpret it. So then what typically happens is the Secretary of State's office would then produce a memo with some guidance on how they expect to interpret that and how they expect people to comply with that. So it would kind of be both, but it would have to be initiated by the governor, and then the Secretary of State's office would likely interpret what the order is and give some information to the entities on what they think that it means.
Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Good meeting.
Unplug us.